I went out of my way to make my brother's wife feel bad about herself. I'm going to start out by saying I know that I'm an awful person for this, and I feel sick about it. My brother, James, and I used to be very close. Even once we became adults with our own lives, we would make time to hang out once or twice a week. That was until he started dating his now wife, Jen, in 2015. She didn't like me from the start, and the feeling was very much mutual. She's mean, entitled and jealous, and goes out of her way to make people feel bad about themselves, while hiding behind jokes or just being honest. But we kept it civil for my brother's sake. In November of 2017, I went into treatment for an eating disorder that I've been battling since I was 12 years old. My ED was the worst it had ever been. I was 20 pounds underweight and was beginning to have health complications. This was the first time that I had been serious about recovery, and I was committed, unfortunately. I ended up gaining way more than I had anticipated, over 70 pounds in the next year and a half. This was obviously extremely hard for me, but I was determined to not be sick anymore. During this time, Jen would make constant comments about my weight and my body. She would say things like, "Wow, you're getting thick, and I've never seen you with rolls before." She got even worse after I gained about 50 pounds, saying, "You're considered obese, right?" We were basically the same weight at my heaviest, and asking me to stick my arm out so she could see if I had bingo wings. She claimed these were all jokes, and when I asked my brother to talk to her, he said that was just joking around and I needed to stop being sensitive. I figured that the reason she was the way she was because she felt bad about herself and wanted to bring everyone else down with her. This was confirmed when I overheard her tailing to my brother about how she was sick of me being so full of myself, flaunting how small my waist was and acting like I was better than her, and she was overjoyed because she's not prettier than me now that she's fat. I was extremely hurt by this, and not just because she called me fat. I never tried to make anyone feel bad and always go out of my way to hype people up and try to make them feel good about themselves. Even though I disliked her, I would always compliment her and tell her when she looked nice. The final straw was when I was hanging out with my brother playing MTG, and I went to the kitchen to get a drink. She was cooking, and when I went to get a glass, she grabbed my stomach and said, "Chunk." I went off. I'm generally a really quiet and reserved person, and I don't remember ever screaming at someone like that before. I called her an insecure bully, said that she can only feel good when tearing people down, and she was a waste of oxygen. James came in while this was happening, and when I explained what happened, he told me that I needed to calm down and I shouldn't talk to someone like that just because I can't take a joke. I ended up leaving and blocking them on everything. I'm not going to lie. After that, I did relapse in my ED. I lost quite a bit of weight before deciding that my focus needed to be on being happy with myself and my body, and not just the number on the scale. So I decided to do it the healthy way. This did get hard after the whole COVID business, but I made it work. I not only lost the weight, but I gained muscle and confidence that I've never had before. Though now I realize I just traded one ED for another, orthorexia. When I saw her and my brother again for the first time Christmas of 2021, I wanted revenge, both for how she treated me and for destroying my relationship with my brother. I made sure to look as good as possible. I did up my hair and makeup, which I don't usually put a whole lot of effort into for family get-togethers, and wore a form-fitting sweater dress that accentuated how small my waist was. When she saw me, she looked pissed. The entire evening she would periodically look over at me and scowl. During dinner, my mom mentioned that I looked really good, and I said, "Thank you. I'm glad that I'm not considered obese anymore." I took any opportunity I could to get in some kind of subtle jab, though I never blatantly insulted her. I've done this ever since, and only decided to stop this past June. We were at my niece's birthday party, and she was wearing a tank top. I told her that it was cute, but be careful, that color accentuates bingo wings, which made her burst into tears. She just walked away and asked my brother to take her home. I have no idea what possessed to say. Something so blatantly horrible. This was the first time I had gotten any reaction out of her other than a glare or an eye roll. I don't think I really realized how terrible what I was doing was until that moment. I knew it was mean, but I justified it because I felt like she deserved it for how she treated not only me, but everyone around her. I did end up unblocking her number to apologize for the way I had been behaving. She just responded with okay, and I left it at that. Nothing excuses my behavior, no matter how badly she had treated me. I knew that she only said and did the things she did because she had a poor self-image, and I had no right to use that against her. I know how it feels to hate yourself so completely. The only difference is I take it out on myself and not other people. I'm disgusted with myself and I don't know how I should deal with this moving forward. She'll probably be there on Thanksgiving, and I really don't know if I should apologize in person or just keep my distance and leave things as they are. Edit for clarification. I've had a few people say that she knew that I had an ed. She probably doesn't. If she did, she would definitely mark me for it. It's obviously not something I told her, and it's never really been addressed within my family beyond them occasionally encouraging me to eat or giving me a look if I made something for myself instead of eating what was cooked. I never even told them I was going into a treatment facility, so as far as I know, she and my family just thought I randomly gained weight. Edit 2. This is going to be the last thing I add, because I feel like this is getting long, but replying to all of the comments felt a bit redundant. I genuinely appreciate all of the support, but I really don't think that my actions were justified. I do know that I had a reason to be upset, and I was allowed to defend myself. But I could have gone about it in so many other ways that would have actually been productive. What I did, while it made me feel good at first, didn't do anything to help the situation, and I ultimately ended up hurting myself in the process. I obviously struggle with self-image quite a bit, both with my appearance and myself as a person. The one thing I am proud of is that I try not to put more negativity into the world than I have to. This doesn't always work because I'm human, but I never deliberately hurt someone like that. Something that I didn't mention was that she has struggled with her weight fluctuating since she was a kid, and this was really hard on her, especially considering most of the women in her family are pretty petite. I still did what I did, knowing how much those comments hurt, and even without thinking about how it made her feel. I allowed her to live in my head for years after I stopped talking to them. I allowed her to make me the worst version of myself. After that first time, I felt amazing. I became determined to never give her the opportunity to mark my weight again. I once again became focused more on the scale and my measurements than anything, but didn't register it as a relapse because I was technically eating enough, and I was only eating healthy food, on top of keeping resentments because of the comments. I blamed her for turning my brother against me and for my relapse. But my brother chose to side with her, and I'm responsible for utilizing my resources. When things like that happen, that was on me. Update. Just a small update from my last post. I ended up talking to my brother. We hadn't really spoken at all since my blow up, and I wanted to have an actual conversation, hoping that we might be able to move past everything. I wasn't expecting it to be a fun conversation, but it somehow went worse than I'd expected. But first, I want to clarify a few things that came up in my first post. My Sil doesn't like me because my brother and I got into an argument not long after they started dating. I don't remember what it was about or what was said. This was in 2015. But she ended up getting involved, and we've disliked each other ever since. It's also important to note that I'm not the only one she does this to. She has a lot of trouble keeping friends because of it. She just amped it up with me after my weight gain. I feel like I made it sound like I just sat around meekly while she bullied me. This wasn't really the case. Boundaries are very important to me, and I try to make my expectations for how I allow people to treat me clear. This wasn't always the case. but I've worked hard to learn to advocate for myself. At first, I would make it clear that the jokes that she made, even before the weight comments, were not okay, but she would always just laugh or insist that I was just being dramatic. Because I had no one to back me up, I eventually just gave up and tried to change the subject whenever she was being rude. I've always been an extremely sensitive person, and I feel guilt and shame very deeply, even when it's not my own. In this case, it obviously was. I can make people angry all day and not be bothered, but I can't stand hurting or embarrassing someone. I think this is why it took me so long to realize how bad what I was doing was. Because up until I made her cry, I had only really gotten a glare and eye roll. Now getting into my conversation with my brother. It started with him saying that I really hurt her feelings, and I told him that I know. That's why I apologized. He just said that I shouldn't have said it in the first place, and he wishes that me and her could just get along. We went back and forth for over an hour, the majority of the conversation being him dismissing my feelings. I asked him why he felt it was okay for her to treat me the way she does, but not for me to return her energy. He once again said that she doesn't mean the things that she says. He said that I wasn't actually obese or anything that she said, and I know how self-conscious she is about her body. I felt like I couldn't breathe when he said that. I mentioned before that no one in my family ever actively said anything about my eating disorder, but they knew. He knew how hard gaining weight was on me. Growing up, he and my sister would always encourage me to eat more. It was never addressed beyond that. But they were the only ones that ever really seemed to care. But he still defended her when she would mark me. I make one mean comment and he jumps to her defense. Because she's self-conscious, I was completely stunned. All I could do was cry. I just said what the F***ck ever and hung up. I did find out that she would be at Thanksgiving, but I probably won't go either way. Talking about this situation has made me realize a lot of things. And I think I need a break from my family in general. I'm having so many conflicting emotions right now, and I don't know how to even begin processing them. It's become so much more than me feeling ashamed of what I said. I'll post an update if anything comes up, but as far as my seal goes, I've blocked them both, and I'm just going to do what a lot of people suggested and leave the situation as it is. So this is probably it.